There's an egg recall happening right now, and the FDA just gave it their most dangerous rating possible. 19 million eggs, 98 people sick, 26 in the hospital, 17 states. Open your fridge, look at the carton sitting there. Because here's the number that should actually stop you. 19 million eggs, 98 people sick. Do the math on that. That's roughly a 0.0005% chance. You are statistically far more likely to get hurt driving to the store to buy the eggs than you are to get sick from eating them. And yet, I'd bet you just looked at your own fridge a little differently than you did 30 seconds ago. That gap between how small the actual risk is and how big it feels is what this video is actually about. Subscribe, because we're about to take that gap apart completely. And here's the part that should genuinely bother you more than the salmonella itself. This egg recall isn't new. It isn't even rare. It's a pattern, and it keeps repeating at almost exactly the same scale every few years. Go back to 2010. Two Iowa companies, Wright County Egg and Hillendale Farms, both connected to the same owner, recalled a combined 550 million eggs. The largest egg recall in U.S. history. When federal investigators actually got inside those farms, what they found wasn't just bacteria. It was live rodents. Chicken feces piling up so high it was coming out through doorways. Dead birds left to rot in the cages. Nearly 2,000 people got sick. The owner had already been fined over $200,000 for sanitation violations before any of this happened. 4 years later, he was criminally charged. Then, 2018, Roseacre Farms, this time in North Carolina, 206 million eggs recalled, the largest since 2010. And now, 2026. Midwest Poultry Services out of 2 farms in Texas. 19 million eggs this time, smaller in raw numbers than the last 2. But somehow, this is the one that got the FDA's most severe classification yet. Same story, different decade, different farm, same collapse. So how does a problem on 2 farms in Texas end up threatening 17 states? The eggs came from a single company, 2 facilities. And that was enough to reach grocery stores across half the South. This is what a small number of massive producers feeding an entire country actually looks like. It's cheaper, way cheaper, to run a handful of enormous farms than thousands of small ones. But there's a trade-off buried inside that efficiency that almost never gets talked about. When you concentrate that much production into that few points, you're not just building an efficient system, you're building a fragile one. One contamination at one facility doesn't stay local anymore. It rides the exact same supply chain that made your eggs cheap, straight into millions of kitchens in a matter of days. So that's one layer. But it still doesn't explain the fridge thing. Why you looked at your eggs differently, even after hearing the real odds. For that, we need psychology. Specifically, something researchers call the availability heuristic. Your brain doesn't actually calculate risk with math. It estimates risk based on how easily an example comes to mind. And a headline about salmonella, hospitals, 17 states is an incredibly vivid, easy-to-recall example. Compare that to a fact like over 1 million car crashes happen in the U.S. every year. You've heard that before. It didn't make you flinch. Psychologist Paul Slovic spent decades studying this exact gap and gave the scarier category a name: dread risk. Risks that feel uncontrollable, invisible, and catastrophic get rated as far more dangerous than they statistically are. Risks that are familiar, even genuinely deadlier ones, get almost completely discounted. You can't see salmonella. You can't control whether it's already sitting in your fridge right now. That combination is exactly what makes your brain sound the alarm, regardless of what the actual number says. Meanwhile, you drive a car almost every day at genuinely higher personal risk, and think almost nothing of it. Familiarity quietly turned that alarm off a long time ago. And here's a strange twist that makes this even more interesting. This isn't even the first time eggs have had to fight for their reputation. Back in 2008, a well-known heart surgeon stood up at a nutrition symposium in Turkey and publicly apologized to his own patients. For years, he told them to avoid eggs completely, terrified of cholesterol. Then he said it straight to their faces. New research showed eggs barely raise blood cholesterol at all. He'd spent years banning a food that was never actually the threat he thought it was. The country's own agriculture minister even said publicly that he welcomed the egg's reputation being restored. So the fear cycle isn't new. First, decades of fear over a risk that turned out to be wildly exaggerated. And now, a fear spike over a risk that's real, but statistically tiny. Same object, different decade, different reason, same disproportionate fear. So, put all of this together, the fragile system and the misfiring alarm. And here's where it actually lands. The fear you felt looking at your fridge wasn't really about the eggs. Statistically, eggs remain one of the safest things in there. It was about something your instincts picked up on that the statistics don't capture. How little control you actually have over the system that puts food in front of you. A handful of companies, a few points of failure, millions of people downstream with zero visibility into any of it. That's not irrational exactly. It's your brain correctly sensing a structural weakness and just attaching the fear to the wrong number. So the real question isn't, are my eggs safe? They almost certainly are. It's this. 3 egg recalls, 3 different decades, the same underlying collapse every time. Are you actually comfortable with how few points of failure stand between you and everything you eat? If this made you look at your own fridge a little differently, that's the whole point of this channel. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.